"Hey, you should have left the grass." That's what my neighbor told me as he walked past my house with his dog. I was in the middle of planting some new shrubs in my front yard. Americans love their lawns, but after a $940 water bill the previous season, I frankly had enough. My plan was simple. Little by little, I'd dig up my front lawn and replace it with lower maintenance shrubs and perennials. But I did have a problem. I've never planted an island border before, and I wasn't sure how to arrange the plants so that they would look good. That made my neighbor's comment sting a little bit. Turf grass requires a huge amount of water and lots of chemicals in order to stay looking nice and green. And even then, in the middle of the summer heat, it still looks terrible. Not all my neighbors appreciate the change, but since they don't pay my water bills, I try not to take their criticism to heart. In today's video, I'm going to share how much turf I've removed so far, what that process looked like, and I even want to talk about some of the mistakes I've made along the way. My front lawn always looks great in early spring because the weather's cool and we get lots of rain. But the reality is my turf spends most of its season looking like this. Our summers here in Michigan are hot and dry. I could never water the top of that hill enough, so the top of the hill is where I started. I removed the turf manually using a spade. I started the project when you could clearly see where the turf dried out the most, and those are the areas I wanted to remove. After I amended the soil, I planted a deer-resistant planting of chartreuse-colored Barberry, chartreuse-colored Ninebark, and then I lined the border with Boxwood. My idea was to create a super low-maintenance planting that would fill up inside of the Boxwood. I watered the plants until everything got established, but now that those shrubs are older, I don't do any supplemental watering. They only get watered when it rains. I have to admit, when you look at the initial photographs, everything does look a bit sparse. But this is a great way to save money. I purchased very small plant starts, and it didn't take long for those plants to fill in. Within the first season, the Ninebark started filling in, and by the second season, the Ninebark filled in enough so that it took over the space. The foliage was a bright and happy color, which I loved, and miraculously, the deer, for the most part, leave the Ninebark alone, and they definitely don't touch the Barberry shrubs. This planting is definitely deer resistant here. I was really happy with how the Hilltop Planting turned out. Not only was it a lot less maintenance than the turf, but it had the added benefit that the shrubs provided some privacy from the front road. The next big area I decided to tackle was the area in front of our house under the tree. I used the same technique of removing the turf by hand, but that turned out to be such a huge job. In hindsight, it would have been better to rent a sod cutter. Now I needed to decide how I wanted to plant up the area. I've never planted an island-style border on such a large scale, and honestly, with the criticism from my neighbors, I was a little bit nervous. I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard to decide what you really want to plant. So I used a technique where I took photographs of gardens that I liked, and I put them on top of photographs of my house. And I looked at different planting schemes and tried to figure out which one I liked the best. This is a really helpful technique, especially if you have trouble visualizing what things will look like once they're planted. The scheme that I loved was the one that featured a lot of different grasses. The area in front of my house is part shade. There's only a small section that gets some sun. The plants that I ended up selecting for this area I thought were all deer resistant, but apparently my deer didn't read that memo. I'll leave a complete list in the description of the video. But I planted Japanese forest grass, which is definitely deer resistant. I planted a variety of Weigela called Wine and Roses. This is not deer resistant. I did plant Boxwood, which have been a definite deer resistant success in my garden. I got a great yellow juniper called Sea of Gold. And then I also purchased a bunch of Cranesbill, so geranium, Rozanne. This is not deer resistant. One plant that the deer never touch is this beautiful Pulmonaria called Silver Bouquet. And then I also added a great deep purple Heuchera called Obsidian. And last but not least, I purchased a Japanese maple, Bloodgood. That needs to be sprayed with deer repellent. I laid everything out, and when I was happy with the spacing, I planted everything in its place and let everything grow for a year. I was happy with how things were filling out the following season, but then I realized I made a huge mistake. It turns out that I didn't fully appreciate how aggressive the roots for this box elder tree really were going to be. And I thought that just because of how I had amended the soil that I was going to be okay, but I was completely wrong. It turns out I needed to transplant the Heuchera and the Pulmonaria because they weren't happy underneath the tree. My plan for this season is to add more Japanese forest grass and to find plants that are better suited for the root competition under the tree. The next area where I was able to remove turf was a small little patch of grass in front of the hilltop garden, and this area is actually full sun. I planted a bunch of flowers here, and once I realized how well the flowers grew, I decided to hire a couple of gentlemen to help me make this area a lot bigger and to get rid of even more grass. They rented a sod cutter and had the area cleared in no time. We focused on removing the part of the turf that was really dry. The plan for this season is to fill this flower bed in and enjoy the fact that I have a lot less turf. So, the next time you hear your neighbor offering unsolicited advice, hey, you should have left the grass. Keep your head high and know it's a lot prettier and a lot easier to manage when you replace it with plants. Well, friends, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.
Anywhere feel like